Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Optics in Action, where we spotlight leaders with vision and clarity. And today I'm really excited to have on this episode Zach Lemaster, and he is the CEO of Rent to Retirement. And we're going to be learning a little bit more for those of you probably a lot of you high net worth individuals looking to get into real estate. They've got a turnkey solution. He's going to tell us more about what all that looks like. But so Zach, welcome to the program. Excited to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of the nation's leading turnkey company, Rent to Retirement. We assist investors in buying the best real estate investments across the country, where we do everything for them. So we identify the best locations. We have our teams in each one of those areas where we're maximizing cash flow appreciation and equity to be able to manage everything for you. So we find the deal. A lot of what we do is like build to rent, new construction, or we rehab houses, and then we lease and manage them for our investors so they can be a passive investor to grow their portfolio. Like many people in the real estate business, I have no background in real estate, so this isn't something I'll do typically go to college for. I actually have a background in healthcare. So my wife and I are optometrists by education. We spent many years in private practice. I was an Air Force captain for 7 years because I was on scholarship. I started investing in real estate as a young captain. Even the first house that I bought was a duplex, lived in half, rented out the other half. Absolutely loved it. I love the idea of living for free, buying an asset that someone else was paying off for me, and ultimately that I could, turn into positive cash flow. My wife and I started investing locally when we were in I was stationed in North Dakota. We hit a pivotal moment in our investing career after about 5 years of investing locally, where we decided we started to learn how to invest out of state. And that's really important because we kind of had this epiphany where it's like, hey, we're seeing all these different markets and all these crazy things happen across the country. There probably is a better investment opportunity in another market besides our own backyard. And so once we kind of opened up our eyes to being, a little bit market agnostic, just looking at the numbers and focusing on investing where it made the most sense, where you get the best returns, that really skyrocketed our portfolio and our trajectory, where we were able to retire from our career path early on as doctors, and be full-time investors, just, replace our income. So that was the birthplace of Rent to Retirement, because we had a lot of friends and family and colleagues that were coming to us saying, hey, we see what you're doing in real estate. We don't necessarily want to do all this and manage all this, or we don't know where to start. Can you help us? And so that's what we do. We help investors, buy investment properties and build their portfolio and ultimately achieve financial independence through real estate investing. So
That's a great, really interesting business model. So I've got a few rental properties myself in Illinois, and I've got an LLC, and I've talked to my attorneys, like, what if I, bought a rental property in Florida? Like, oh, you should open another LLC. And there's lots of potential complexity when you look at these things. So having someone like you to facilitate that and help with that process of navigating a lot of those things is probably incredibly helpful for folks. So I'm definitely interested to learn more about this.
thank you.
Really, really good stuff. So what's your process? Do you have a process that you sort of take people through? If someone comes to you, if they said, hey, I'm interested in investing in more real estate, investing, learning more about this, what are my steps? Do you have a process you sort of take folks through?
Certainly. I'll start with the process of where do we invest? Because I think that's really important. How do we determine, even in a location? The first thing we want to do is, we have a long, basically, checklist of all the things the market has to check. And we want to be, as you know, Ryan, it's a diverse and dynamic market out there, especially right now. So things are changing. You need to be conscious of, regulations and legislation, and but also supply and demand. Where's the best opportunity? Where are we going to get the best bang for our buck? There's a population shift moving down to the Sun Belt, right? And there's a lot of areas that are actually in a housing crisis right now, where there's a huge undersupply. Those are the areas you want to invest in, because you're going to have the best appreciation, best rents, just best performance over time. You want to be in the path of progress. But anyways, we want to identify areas so of course, have a housing demand. We have to be in areas that are still affordable, so we have, still cash flow on the property. A lot of our investors maybe live in an expensive market where, even if they wanted to invest locally, it's such a high barrier of entry, or takes so much money to put down on that property, even maybe break even cash flow,
Yeah.
versus, being in an area like Florida, Texas, Alabama, where you can get a double-digit cash flow return, only putting, 5 to 20% down on a property. But anyways, we identify a market. We want to be in areas that have things like landlord-friendly legislation, low taxes, future population and economic growth, diversity of industries, not just an area that's reliant on oil and gas, obviously, where the numbers make sense to cash flow. We go into the areas, we build our local construction teams as well as property management teams in those areas. And then once we have a process in place where we can consistently and predictably offer a turnkey investment property where we know that it's going to offer predictable returns, we'll offer that to our community. So that's a process to identify the location. Now, our investors, which we've helped thousands of people achieve financial success through real estate investing today. I said we're the number one turnkey investment company, and I mean that, and also based on our reputation. So if anyone looks us up, we have more five-star reviews and public public reviews than any company out there. But anyone that comes to us, we have a diversity of people that may be interested in turnkey. We have, as I mentioned, people that live in expensive markets. We have people that are just getting started investing and they just need some hand holding, or people getting started out of state because they don't know where to start. And yes, as you mentioned, there's a lot to that. You need to be conscious. That doesn't mean it's complicated or difficult. You just do need a process or someone kind of guiding you through that. We have full-time real estate investors that just need to buy additional properties with us for tax purposes, right? That's the beautiful thing we love about matching business with real estate is that we buy enough real estate every single year where we offset our active income from our business and from all sources because we accelerate the depreciation on that. But anyways, if someone comes in our door, they're interested to learn how to start investing with us. First thing we do is have a consultation with them, with one of our investment strategists. We don't charge investors anything. We make our money through building, rehabbing, and managing houses.
Okay.
But someone comes in the door, we want to learn about you, learn about your goals, your resources, your timeline, and then let's give you some action steps. Usually the first one being, do you plan on using financing? Okay, what type of financing? Let's get you qualified with the right lenders. We have some of the best, we've scoured the nation for the best lenders and the best loan products. So we put them in touch with the lender, they get pre-approved, and then we help them we match the client to the market. They put properties under contract and we walk them through the transaction process. It's a normal transaction. You're buying out of state. You need to go through the same due diligence. Many people buy sight unseen. You need to have an appraisal and inspection. You need to have your title work done appropriately. So that's
Yeah.
really just walking people through the journey.
Excellent, excellent. And so who is your sort of target investor? What does that profile look like? Are they individuals? Are they companies? I mean, you've mentioned sort of a couple of different profiles there. People who do a lot of real estate investment already, somebody who's just entering into it the first time. Is there sort of a segment of the market of investors that makes the most sense where you provide the most value to them?
It really depends on the investor and if turnkey fits their goals. We work with the individual investor though, so we're not selling to like institutional buyers or funds.
Okay.
We work with individual investors because that's who we cater to. We help people build a financial blueprint through real estate investing, and often that fits into it's a multifactorial thing of their overall financial picture, right? So,
Yeah.
but where does real estate fit in and how they create a business out of it? Because you are building a business when you're investing in real estate. How do you maximize the tax benefits? How do you
Yeah.
set up the legal structure? So, individual investors, and yes, anyone where this makes sense for them. So typically, I would say most of our investors are people that are, they have disposable income that they would need to invest. So you probably need 20 or 30K if you're using financing to use as a down payment. That's kind of the minimum requirement. And then they want to own real estate, but they don't want to be a property manager. They don't want to be active. So usually we have a lot of, high paid professionals that have disposable income. They want to invest in real estate. They want to diversify. They need to be hands off. So
It's very interesting. I was as a person who there've been times in my life. I mean, I've owned a couple of the rental properties for 10 plus years, and there have been times when I've had property managers invest or managing it while I lived out of the country. I've had other times when I was here locally and managed some of it myself. And it can take a lot of time and effort and frustration and all those things to manage renters and all those types of things that sometimes people don't think about. How do you coach those investors who maybe are brand new into it? How do you coach them through kind of what to expect? I mean, it sounds like you're managing it all, so it's really you're taking all of that stuff off their plate. So it's just put the check in, see the checks come in. Like what does that look like for how you coach them through some of the challenges and nuances of rental properties.
Yeah, so certainly it's all about setting appropriate expectations and getting people, set up for success long term, but also acknowledging that this is still real estate. And even if you have a property manager in place, which you don't have to use our property management teams, right? You could self-manage. We have some people that use like our new construction for short-term rentals or mid-term rentals as well and do their own thing. But um, our advice is that you need to, as I mentioned previously, set yourself up as if you're operating this like a business, and it can be a very part-time thing. It can be a side hustle, but it's less of a hobby, and you need to associate like a business. Now that doesn't mean you have to be in there doing 40 hours a week. That's not the goal. But I mean, there's a lot of things, if anyone's read the book, The E-Myth or The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, that's a really good book to, I think, set the mindset. And if you haven't read that, I recommend that. But it's really about focusing on the things that are going to allow you to be successful, not working in your business, but working on your business. You need to be aware of when you're owning rental real estate, how do you apply that to your overall financial situation? How do you maximize the tax benefits? How do you do depreciation? And this doesn't mean that you necessarily need to do it, right? We have real estate specific attorneys and CPAs you get immediate access to. Um, but you need to be aware of it and you need to understand how that works. Also, you need to understand, okay, well, how do I hold my property management team accountable? So it's just educating people on that. And even though we have robust systems in place where it can be ultimately passive, I think the most active part should be during that first 90 days when you come in. Certainly during the purchase of the property, you need to understand how do you go through due diligence. A lot of our investors, this is their first property or first out of state. And they're like, well, do I need a property inspection? Absolutely, you always do. You know what I mean? So it's walking people through the process and educating them as they go through it. I think that first property you buy is so important, just mentally and emotionally. You know what I mean? But it's a huge education piece. I always tell people that, like, because they're often the most like emotionally invested in that first deal. They're probably scared or they have some trepidation. That's normal, right? Like we all go through those emotional roller coasters, but I think you settle your nerves by just going through the process and educating yourself and understanding like, hey, this isn't overly complicated or the same, it's really following the same process locally, and then checking with your managerial team on a regular basis and then setting up your business. So it's part of we build long-term relationships with our investors. We work with them consistently. We want them to be successful because that means we're incentivized when they are successful. They'll come back and continue to invest. No one's here to buy one rental property they're going to plan to retire off of in 30 years, right? They want to build a portfolio. So
Right.
I don't know if I answered your question or
But
ran it off with too
absolutely,
much.
absolutely. I think, one of the things I often talk about with folks across construction and services and manufacturing across a wide variety of industries that we work with, we talk about the intersection of people and process. And you may notice the title of the podcast, Optics in Action. And I think you said you were an optometrist, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So the word optics has two meanings. One is the study of light. One of the actual study of light and refraction and reflection and lenses and all those type of things. The second one is the perceptions of people, the optics of a situation. And as you think about it, as you were talking, I was sort of thinking through, there is in real estate, just like any other business, there's this, what are my emotions and perceptions about what's going on and what's happening? How do I set expectations with the or the real estate management company? All those types of things, those emotions that are formed from perceptions. And then on the other side, there's the technical stuff, the interest rates and the LLC and all of that stuff. So are you helping folks, the real estate investors, kind of with both pieces of that? I mean, I heard a little bit of both of those, that you're helping them navigate the technical stuff of selecting the right property and getting the inspections done, LLC, financing, interest rate, all that stuff, the technical stuff. And then there's this emotional sort of side of it for people. How do you navigate that balance with folks?
I think it's just setting goals and having a plan, right? I mean, we all have fears. We all have reservations about, a lot of it comes down to just lack of education. So we can squash a lot of fears just by properly educating someone. Like, well, A perfect example would be we're very active in Florida, which is one of the best markets because it's growing so dramatically. I mean, we've had double-digit appreciation both in rents and price value, every single year, including these past 2 years with high interest rates. It's again supply and demand, but people are always like, "Well, what about hurricanes?" I hear, I don't want to invest in an area that's hurricanes or flooding, or isn't insurance like dramatically going up in Florida and across the country? Well, yes, in some houses, but also in some, no. Did you know that insurance on new construction is actually